Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El-Rom.
And I'm Rebecca Rand.
In our top story, the state of Israel is in the midst of its third national lockdown as coronavirus cases have skyrocketed. Jerusalem has launched a massive inoculation campaign and is aiming to vaccinate a quarter of the population within a month. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the goal is to reach 150,000 vaccines a day. Within 30 days of achieving this pace, we will have administered 4.5 million vaccinations. Since everyone needs 2 injections, after 1 month, we will have vaccinated 2.25 million Israeli citizens.
A high-level delegation from Morocco was in Jerusalem recently, working to advance the normalization agreement brokered by the Trump administration. The team from Rabat reportedly discussed the opening of liaison offices in Tel Aviv and gave assurances that Morocco would establish an embassy in Israel in the near future. Another Moroccan delegation is set to visit again next month in order to rapidly advance the peace accords. The countries recently penned several agreements, including the shared use of airspace and the opening of direct flight routes. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Moroccan King Mohammed VI spoke by phone and congratulated each other on the newly brokered peace between their nations.
Hawkish Israeli politician Gideon Sa'ar continues to make waves in Israeli politics. His recent split from the ruling Likud party has sparked a flurry of activity as several high-profile members of Knesset announced they were joining the new Tikva Chadasha party. Ze'ev Elkin, Yifat Shasha Biton, and Sharon Haskell, all very popular members of Benjamin Netanyahu's Likud party, announced that they were defecting to join Sa'ar. Another prominent Likud member, the mayor of the Red Sea resort city of Eilat, Mayor Yitzhak Halevi, also announced that he was jumping ship to join Sa'ar. The new party said it would seek to limit the term of the prime minister to 8 years, extend Israeli sovereignty to Jewish communities throughout Judea and Samaria, and reform Israel's judicial system.
Israel's Internal Security Service announced the arrest of a Palestinian in connection with the brutal murder of Esther Horgan, who was a mother of 6 children. A statement from Shin Bet revealed that the suspect had been previously detained and served time in prison for security offenses. The suspect's arrest came just 3 days after the discovery of the woman's brutally beaten body. Defense Minister Benny Gantz released a statement saying we used all the means the security apparatus has at its disposal and speedily arrested the suspect in the horrific murder of Esther Horgan. The IDF and all security forces will reach every terrorist and stomp on terror every time and place it rears its head.
The U.S. Customs and Border Protection Agency has issued a notice stating that goods produced in Judea and Samaria are to be labeled as made in Israel. During his recent visit to the Jewish heartland, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo made the announcement that the United States would be changing its policy on products made in Judea and Samaria. The decision to label these products as made in Israel is in contrast with the position of prior administrations and the European Union, which for nearly 2 decades has differentiated between Israeli products made over the pre-1967 lines and has exempted them from free trade agreements with Israel. The UN Human Rights Council has gone so far as to publish a blacklist of companies doing business in Israeli communities located in these areas. The change in the labeling laws marks a clear shift in policy by the administration of U.S. President Donald Trump to begin the recognition of the sovereignty of Israeli communities in Judea and Samaria.
United Arab Emirates and Israel are reportedly working together to terminate the mandate of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency. UNRWA, which operates exclusively for the Palestinians, is already facing the worst financial crisis in its history. The Trump administration cut funding to the UN agency in 2018, calling it an irredeemably flawed organization. Israel has long accused UNRWA of impeding peace by perpetuating the Palestinian refugee problem, repeating a biased narrative of the conflict, and engaging in incitement. Several other countries have cut their contributions to UNRWA, including the UAE, which did not transfer any funds to the organization in 2020. A report in the French news agency claims that Emirati officials are planning to let the corrupt organization gradually disappear by ignoring calls for further funding.
Innocent civilians were once again sent scrambling for bomb shelters as terrorists in Gaza resumed rocket fire on Israeli communities. The Iron Dome missile defense system intercepted 2 missiles fired from the Hamas-run enclave into southern Israel. The Israeli Defense Forces responded by striking a rocket manufacturing site in the Gaza Strip. According to the IDF, the factory was used to improve the terror group's weapons capabilities. The Israeli army confirmed several secondary explosions after the direct hit on the weapons manufacturing site. It said Hamas deliberately places military targets in the heart of densely populated areas, while the Israeli army takes all possible precautions to avoid harming civilians.
Airstrikes on Iranian strongholds in Syria left 6 Islamic paramilitary combatants dead and several more injured. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights reported that a number of militia bases and missile assembly factories in northern Syria were targeted in the recent attacks. An El aircraft carrying cargo was diverted over Cyprus mid-flight to avoid the Syrian and Lebanese coastlines during the airstrikes. Jerusalem refused to comment on its involvement in the incident, but the IDF has repeatedly warned that it will not tolerate Iranian entrenchment on Israel's borders.
The fanatic leader of the Iranian-backed terror group Hezbollah claims that his military apparatus has doubled the number of its precision missiles that can hit anywhere in Israel. Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah is reportedly in hiding, fearing an Israeli or Saudi assassination attempt. The terror leader believes that he could be next on the hit list after Iran's chief nuclear scientist was recently eliminated in a daring mission inside Iran. Several top Hezbollah commanders have also been killed in airstrikes in Syria, which targeted Iranian weapons and training facilities.
A letter signed by 150 House Democrats urged President-elect Joe Biden to re-enter the disastrous Iranian nuclear deal. The Obama-brokered Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action Agreement is known as the worst deal in history. It allowed Iran to inch closer towards its goal of creating nuclear weapons while enjoying sanctions relief and receiving planes full of American cash as incentive for making inconsequential sacrifices. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has strongly spoken out against the agreement, saying that it will put Israel in imminent danger.
A senior Pakistani cleric has ruled that according to Islamic theology, the land of Israel belongs to the Jews. Maulana Muhammad Khan Sharani was a lawmaker in the National Assembly and served in an advisory capacity to Parliament on Sharia law. He has ruled that according to Islamic theology, the historic land of Israel belongs only to the Jews. He supports the recognition of Israel and said educated Muslims need to understand that the Quran and history prove that the land of Israel belongs to the Jews.
A female American immigrant to Israel has become the first lone soldier to complete the Israeli Air Force's pilot's course. The 21-year-old Boston native moved to the Jewish state by herself and was accepted into the IAF after excelling in the qualifying exams. The Air Force's pilot's class is notoriously difficult. Only 39 cadets successfully complete the class out of an initial intake of 500. A representative for the Friends of the Israeli Defense Forces said, in addition to making history by completing the pilot's program, it is important to remember that this brave woman was not obligated to serve in the IDF, but chose to become a lone soldier in order to protect Israel. As 2020 comes to a close and a new year begins, we at Israel Now News would like to wish all of our viewers a happy, healthy, and successful 2021. We pray for God to heal the world and look forward to better times soon so that we can invite you to visit the Holy Land. As we say in Hebrew, L'shana ba'a b'Yerushalayim, next year in Jerusalem.
We are living in mysterious yet miraculous times. We've witnessed the most remarkable fulfillment of biblical prophecy, the Jewish people's return to Israel, and the prosperity and contributions of this tiny country in such a short time. Yet we've also seen an unexpected rise in anti-Semitism, which takes the form of anti-Zionism and alliances between groups that are fighting against the most fundamental biblical values. In the book Titus, Trump, and the Triumph of Israel, Josh Reinstein answers important questions to clarify what has driven political action from the time that the Roman Emperor Titus destroyed Jerusalem until today, when President Trump recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Get your copy today and learn how faith-based diplomacy has changed the world. To order your advance copy, go to triumphofisrael.com.
That concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein, and we're here in our beautiful studio in Jerusalem. My guest today is Elana Watson. She's the director of Christian Friends of Magen David Adom. Elana, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Josh.
Tell our viewers a little bit about what is the Christian Friends of Magen David Adom.
So Christian Friends of Magen David Adom was founded about 10 years ago, initially by an Orthodox Jew. May his name be for a blessing, Norman Feingold. And his thing was to establish relationships between Christians and Jews, and to do it in a practical way using a platform of healing and saving lives.
So what does Christian Friends of Magen David actually do?
So we raise awareness of the medical emergency needs of Israelis, because Magen David Adom is Israel's national emergency response, disaster relief, blood services, and first responder organization.
It's a response basically to the Red Cross, if I understand. It's the Red Star of David.
That's right, that's right. We're a member of the International Red Cross Societies.
We're living now in the time of coronavirus. Has Magen David Adom had its hands busy here in Israel?
So, our volunteers and staff are completely overwhelmed and overtaken, by all of the demands. We get 100,000 calls a day, practically, and so the demand has shot up by about 900%. And some of the team members have, caught the virus themselves. But we really need to support them all the more, and just cheer them on and be there when we can.
It's truly heroic work. We see it in our community. If you have any doubt that you have coronavirus, the first thing you do is you call Magen David Adom. How have they become really the go-to organization for corona tests and bringing people to the hospitals? Where did that come from?
Well, as I said, they're Israel's national emergency response medical rescue organization. But they've got certain sites that they've set up for testing, and they go to people's homes. And so they've just really responded to the demands in a phenomenal way. And, they visit the elderly. We at Christian Friends of Magen David Adom, we do that as well. We visit the elderly and try to give them some support and see how they're doing. And so, Magen David Adom has always been sort of a cultural fabric of Israel. Even when we came here as a family in the 70s, they were very much at large. I mean, every single ambulance was Magen David Adom.
And now we see that Christians are getting involved in the Magen David Adom. They're supporting projects. What are some of the projects that your organization is getting involved in?
So some of the projects involve funding stations. We've funded about 40 or 50 additional stations for Magen David Adom around different areas that needed servicing of ambulances, but mainly emergency vehicles. They've purchased emergency vehicles, and it really is a testimony to Christian support in Israel when people see, the names of the pastors in their congregations on the side door, driving by when people are at stoplights and they see, and so that's mainly it. They give emergency vehicles. But there is a project coming up, which is the new location for the blood center in Ramleh. And so right now we are asking Christians to rally together and support a couple of wings there that would be representative of Christian support.
The organization, as you mentioned, is a national institution, so they get money from the government. How much of the budget needs to actually be raised?
So the money they get from the government usually is in kind or for services. Most of the money raised for Magen David Adom is by donations from abroad and from Jews and Christians.
Yeah, it's interesting. My cousins actually donate a ambulance every period of time, and now I'm seeing more of the ambulances have the names of churches on them.
That's
is that
right.
is that from the work that you're doing? Are churches getting involved in purchasing ambulances and bringing them to Israel?
Yes, and there's also Christian Friends of Magen David Adom in the UK. So we work together here and there, and so they're also raising awareness in Europe. We're raising awareness predominantly in Asia right now and in South America, so yeah, that's what we do.
That's interesting. What kind of response are you seeing from Christians in Asia and South America?
Well, so Asians are just now getting it, shall we say. They're becoming more aware of their mandate, their biblical mandate to support Israel and the Jewish people, and they will be blessed. And, just before the COVID-19 hit, tourism from Asia was booming. And so we've received just recently a donation from the Taiwan Embassy, from the Taiwan government, of 100,000 masks. And predominantly, their heart really is to bless Israel. And this is, the most practical way, by saving lives or giving medical supplies towards saving lives.
What's interesting about Magen David Adom is that it actually serves all the citizens of Israel. It's for Jews, Christians, Muslims. Is that something that Christians are resonating with?
Yes, they are, because I think, our Judeo-Christian values, they really echo with goodwill towards men, being your brother's keeper, instilling compassion in people's hearts for each other. I mean, we're all made in the image of God. And so that's what we really echo in the Magen David Adom Charter. All our volunteers are from the different groups, religious groups of Israel.
Your parents are Merv and Marla Watson. They're legends in Israel. They established the Christian Embassy and started this new work between Jews and Christians in the 21st century, well before the 21st century. Do you see this as a continuation of their work?
I do. They're pioneers and musicians, and they had a huge heart for Israel at a time when it wasn't popular. But they instilled within me a real Zionistic heart. And so I roll up my sleeves and get involved where I can on the front lines. I grew up here in Israel, so I'm very much Israeli in my mentality. Yeah.
So you're living now in Jerusalem. How is that in the time of coronavirus? How does that feel to be here in Jerusalem? It's a little bit different, right? What would you say about that?
Well, I tell you, it was kind of sad, during these high holiday stretch, because some of us couldn't be with our families. I do have extended family that's outside of Jerusalem, and I couldn't see them. And desolate. The streets were very, very desolate. But I took some walks and joined some outside congregations, and it was beautiful listening to the singing. But things are really changed, and hopefully for not that much longer.
Amen.
Yeah.
There are literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
Both Jews and Christians are fulfilling God's mandate of blessing each other. We now are becoming closer to being one family. And as such, being your brother's keeper during a time of distress is your responsibility. So we at Magen David Adom, Christian Friends of Magen David Adom, are asking you to assist us with emergency rescue funds for vehicles and for medical supplies, which we so desperately need right now as our nation struggles under the weight of the coronavirus responsibilities. Thank you, and God bless you from Jerusalem.
Thank you, Elana, for being on the show. And thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
Up next, the return to Zion with Karen Hayesod.
Shalom, and welcome to the Return to Zion with Keren HaYesod. I'm Sam Grundwerg, World Chairman of Keren HaYesod, the leading official fundraising organization for the State of Israel. Keren HaYesod is responsible for bringing home tens of thousands of new Olim every year. Every story is unique. Enjoy as we hear one of those incredible success stories.
When the parents of 8-year-old Robert Uman decided in 1938 that their family must leave Germany for a new beginning in New York, little did they know that it would save their lives. Remarkably, the decision also laid the foundations for their son to flourish in the first Jewish state in 2 millennia. Built with the determination of institutions such as Keren HaYesod, here, Robert Uman would become an Israeli hero who would change the world of mathematics. By 1938, the dark clouds had gathered over Germany. Jews had been ousted from every facet of public life. They had become persecuted outcasts. Outright violence against Jews was common. The Uman family fled for the United States just 2 weeks before the infamous Kristallnacht pogrom. They were spared the full horrors of Nazism, which would soon unfold. In their new home, Robert Uman's parents struggled to make a living. But Uman grew up a proud Jew, a scholar of the Hebrew Bible. At the same time, Robert soon emerged as a gifted mathematician. In 1955, he received a prestigious PhD in mathematics from MIT. By this time, thousands of miles away, the impossible dream had become a reality. The State of Israel was born. From the ashes of the Holocaust, an ancient nation returned to its biblical home. With the help of Keren HaYesod and its supporters, the Jewish people built its first independent state in 2,000 years. Robert Uman simply could not resist the pull of history.
Israel is a place where Jews have looked to this for centuries, and this is our fulfillment. So the news that we are gradually getting to be stronger and stronger in Israel vis-a-vis the diaspora, number-wise, that's good news. That's wonderful news.
Uman made his new home in the land of his forefathers, the land of Israel. As Jeremiah had predicted, your children shall return to their borders. Uman's outstanding intellectual ability did not go unnoticed, and he immediately joined the mathematics faculty at Hebrew University in Jerusalem. He has been there ever since. Over the decades, Uman's reputation blossomed into one of the world's outstanding mathematicians. Prestigious prizes and professorships followed. But in 2005, Robert Uman received the ultimate award, the Nobel Prize. Almost overnight, Uman became a household name. His success demonstrated Israel's important contribution to the world. It showcased the Hebrew University, a world-class institution built with the help of Keren HaYesod. This small boy who fled Germany had shown that the Jewish people had triumphed. Uman was an Israeli hero. But despite the accolades, Uman remains first and foremost a proud Jew, even when the Nobel Prize is on offer. With the Nobel Awards ceremony scheduled just minutes after the Jewish Sabbath ended, Uman insisted on first completing his prayers before hurrying to take a seat just 90 seconds before the King of Sweden's arrival. Uman's remarkable life story is a powerful symbol of a proud nation reborn, a people that has never lost faith. And it is a reminder of Zechariah's prophecy, not by might and not by power, but by my Spirit, saith the Lord. Now is your opportunity to continue this holy legacy by assisting additional Jews to make a new life in the land of their forefathers.
Let's bless Israel together.
Now's the time for you to get involved. Assist Keren HaYesod to raise the necessary funds in order to bring Jews yearning for their homeland back to Israel. Your donation can help fulfill the biblical prophecy today. To donate and get information, visit our website at www.khisrael.org.
Ambassador Kraft, Kelly, Joe, Ambassador Friedman, Ambassador Erdan, and your entire delegation. It's not that big, but welcome to Jerusalem, welcome to Israel. I want to start by saying how much we appreciate the strong position that you have held in the United Nations, representing the powerful position that, and consistent position that President Trump has had, defending the truth and defending the state of Israel. It's the same thing in these forums. Often, when I went to serve as ambassador in the United Nations, a great Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, called it the house of lies. He said there's so much lies and so much darkness that remember that in a place of complete darkness, if you light one candle of truth, you know, that light is seen far and wide. So you have lit more than one candle of truth, and President Trump and his team have done wonders to dispel so many of the myths and slanders against the Jewish people and the Jewish state, and we're eternally grateful for that. We think there are great opportunities. You must be seeing that, as does Ambassador Erdan. At the United Nations, you can see the Arab countries that are, some have already come forward, others are coming forward, and you see this great change that is being developed in this circle of peace, real peace, peace for peace, and peace through strength that is being realized with this continual American assistance. And I think we should continue that policy, and we're going to see many, many more countries, a lot more than people expect, and perhaps a lot sooner than people expect. We had a delegation that came back from Morocco yesterday, just an unbelievable meeting with King Mohammed, and this is a realization of dreams. We have people of Israel yearn for peace, pray for peace, dream of peace. That dream is being realized today thanks to many of your efforts, the efforts of the Trump administration and their defense of Israel, of truth, and of genuine peace. So thank you for all that. Welcome to Jerusalem.
The biblical prophecy is unfolding right before our very eyes. To donate and get information, visit our website at www.khisrael.org.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan Elrom.
And I'm Rebecca Rand, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Please join us again next week for all of your Israel updates.